Welcome back to Leeds Lately. Leeds have just lost 1-0, 2 losses on the bounce now, and I think it's time to talk about Daniel FARKE. Not necessarily that he needs to go, but if you watch my video midweek, I said he needs to be more adaptable, he needs to make changes, he needs to actually do something in games to make a difference and not just take off the fullbacks and bring on wingers and throw all our players up front. I'm annoyed, I'm disappointed, it's awful. The fact that very, very early on in the game, right, you could see that what West Brom were trying to do is create space for Jed Wallace out on the right-hand side to give him as much space as possible so that he can get on the ball and cross the ball into the box. They did that so many times and we didn't do anything about it. We didn't stop it. We didn't even try to, really, and that's where their goal came from. The ball just got played straight between Byram and Somerville, straight to Jed Wallace, cross the ball across the box, and they score from it. And we couldn't break them down after that. I mean, how many times does this need to happen before we realise that we might need to try something different? I've already said in that previous video that we need to buy a left back and a number 10 to really just try to create different scenarios, basically, of putting Pirro up front, of putting a different number 10 in there, allowing Jorginho to play out wide and have a go on the fullback instead of going through the middle. And I mean, let's talk about a few positives. I thought Gruev was good. I was impressed with him, and I'm happy that we've seen enough from him now that I would be happy for him to start in games, because the way he picked the ball up and always looked to go forward, always looked to be positive, I was happy with that. He played a lot of long balls through the middle, and we haven't seen that much. The only time we've seen it is Jorginho's goal when Ampadu played that one over the top. We had chances. We had 2 penalty shouts as well. Let's not forget that. We had 2 penalty shouts, which both should have been penalties. And obviously we had the Byram offside goal. We had chances, but we didn't do enough. We never do enough to win games. And then when the team is coming back at you and they've scored that goal and then they can just play their game after that. I thought, let's give credit to West Brom. Carlos Corberan set them up very well. He set them up well, and he set them up exactly to beat us. They got that goal, and then they were just so solid, so defensively sound. But we just lack so much impetus going forward. The first thing that we don't do is move the ball fast enough. I think there's a slight element of that is the fact that Pascal Strout wasn't in the lineup. That's a slight element of it. The other one is that we just genuinely don't move it fast enough. We don't move the ball fast enough. It doesn't move the opposition around enough. It gives them time to get set. It gives them time to come and take the ball off us. It's worrying. It really is worrying how with such a good team we aren't able to break teams down. And okay, yes, West Brom are also a very good team, but if you want to be getting promoted from this division in the automatic spots, you have to be winning these games, and we're not. Again, us not being able to break down a team who play a lot of players in the midfield. Furlong and Townsend came up high and got inverted a little bit like what our fullbacks do, and we just weren't really able to deal with that extra sort of personnel in midfield. I've done a video this week talking about how we could deal with that, maybe go into a back 3, putting an extra midfielder on, so maybe it's Gruev, Kamara and Ampadu, or Gruev, Gray and Ampadu, or Kamara, just a combination of those 3, putting them in there and then allows one of them to go forward and be the number 10. Probably someone like Kamara can then go forward and be the number 10 when he needs to, drop into the midfield, but we don't try anything different. We do the same thing over and over again and expect different results. For me, FARKE really needs to get a grip of this, because if this continues, people are already saying, I'm worried about FARKE. Is he good enough? And I think at this point, it's genuinely okay to start asking that question. I think before you'd say, okay, well, look, those teams had a record start to the Championship. Preston went and got beat by 1-0 by Sheffield Wednesday, I think, tonight. And we lost to them midweek. And now we've just lost to West Brom as well. And even when Ipswich draw, they still move a point. They still move away from us. They still increase the gap. Southampton are now 6 points clear of us. West Brom are now only 3 points behind us. It's looking more and more like playoffs. And for me, something has to change. Whether that's Daniel FARKE's ability to adapt, the players he plays, the situations that he gets us in. Because, again, I've said this so many times, if you're going to put 4 strikers on up front, you have to cross the ball into the box, but we're not. We're not crossing it in. And that brings me on to Jayden Anthony. People are saying that that Sinistera was worse than Jayden Anthony and we've got the better end of the deal. Honestly, now I'm looking at it, Jayden Anthony, I've got nothing against the person. I always say this, nothing against the person or anything like that. But as a footballer, I can't see what he does for this team. I can't see any way in which he helps. Number one, he's not very good at crossing the ball. We've seen he couldn't even get. I said he's a professional footballer. He couldn't even get the ball off the floor when he tried to cross it in one of those moments. Then he's not very good at shooting, and he's not very good at dribbling and taking on a man. And he's also not that quick. So what's he for? If he can't do any of the things that a winger's supposed to do very well, then why is he getting in the team? Nonto as well, people calling for him to start over Dan James. Didn't really do anything. He comes too deep, he's too negative, he doesn't try to take on a man, which I think is his best thing, trying to take on a man and getting the ball in the box, cutting it back and things like that. He just didn't try to get into those areas. He was more focused on coming back and giving the ball backwards. We're too negative at the back, we play it sideways and backwards. When I'm doing my commentary, all I ever say is rode onto Strauch or rode onto Cooper or whoever it is at the defence. It's only ever just them two moving it from side to side, looking forward and thinking I've got no options here. So many moments where we've got 4 players. I mean, I looked at it and there was Somerville and Anthony out on the left-hand side. And in the middle, there was 4 strikers all just stood in a little box. You could throw a blanket over them. None of them were moving. They were all just stood still, just sort of jogging towards the box. One of you has to break off, go out wide, play a triangle, then come back inside, make a run, go round a player, make the defenders actually have to think. But instead, we just almost expect the ball to come to us. And it might, if we actually crossed it into the box. That's the whole point of throwing on these extra players and these extra strikers, is cross the ball into the box. Now you might say, okay, well, our players aren't that tall. We haven't got the tallest players to win the headers in the box. It doesn't necessarily have to be a lofted cross. It could be along the ground. It could be getting to the byline and trying to cut the ball back in the box. But you have to put the ball in the danger area to win it. And if you've got that many strikers on, that's the only way you can play. Unless they have more movement and they go out wide and they link up. But at the moment, they just tend to just sort of all drift towards the centre of the box and not offer anything in either department. So this tactic of bringing these extra strikers on and wingers on might work if you actually told them to do something other than just go and attack. Because surely they can't be having any instruction. If they had any instruction, for me, they'd actually be going and getting in the box. I'm not going to do player ratings today. I don't do the ratings normally, but I'll talk about how well they've played. I just want to say that I thought Gruev was quite good, and I'm happy that he's an option now. Other than that, I genuinely can't see any positives from this game. West Brom are a good side, yes, and I'm not panicking over one result. I'm talking about throughout the season, there have been cracks showing from very early on about how we can't break down certain types of teams and we aren't able to get past certain types of teams. And it's just showing again and again. So for me, FARKE has to change the way he plays or someone's going to have to change FARKE. Happy New Year. Thanks for watching Leeds Lately.